Mohammed Mosam is the Regional Product Marketing Director for Sage Africa and Middle East. And welcome to you, Mohammed. How are you doing?
I'm very well, and yourself, Aki. Thanks for having me on your show.
It's a pleasure, man. Listen, it's great to have you on. And I think it's such an important topic we talk about because, when it comes to finance and, Sage plays a big role. But, the roles of people involved in finances, the CFOs and the relationship between the CEO and all those C-level suites, it's become such a critical role in organizations today. And I wanted to focus with you today about CFOs and look at that and analyze that. And let me first start by asking you about CFOs and, what should CFOs and finance leaders be looking for to make sure that they have the right financial software in place? Because if you've got the wrong software, you're in big trouble.
Absolutely, Aki. I think that's a brilliant question to start off with. Financial software is just not about processing numbers. It's become a strategic tool in businesses today to support business growth. And I think CFOs in their current role with the competitive landscape and what the pressures that have been put under for businesses, they really need to go beyond basic accounting functions and look as to how they can not only be a strategic leader, but also create more efficiency within their accounting processes and within the business across. Because by bringing about efficiency, you're going to bring about cost savings. And then most importantly, to be able to make decisions around leading the business to be more strategic. And also most importantly, around things like flexibility and scalability. Now, Aki, if you look at why do I call out scalability and flexibility? Because that's something that often comes up in strategic discussions in the boardroom. The business needs to scale. If we're going to scale, do we have the right systems in place? Can we scale accordingly? And if you look at things today, if you don't have email, you can't literally communicate with people. That's the reality of the situation. And so similarly, if you're going to scale your business, you need the flexibility and the tools around how you're going to scale that business. And so, primarily, there's been desktop solutions that have been around for many years, and they've been very stable. They've given our customers the right functionality to sort of do what they needed to do. But over time, as the landscape has changed, businesses have to become more agile. And in order for them to become more agile, they've obviously CFOs now have to sort of become more strategic as well. So they not only need to do the finance accounting, which is a given, but I think the role has completely changed in that they now have to suddenly lead the business into becoming more collaborative and making decisions faster in around what they've got to do and how they sort of react to market conditions and political and socioeconomic conditions that invariably affect what businesses do today. So
no, it's excellent. I like what you say there, Mohammed. I mean, that strategic part is so key, because you've got the software at your fingertips. In fact, I've seen the software actually unlock tremendous value and give more eyes into the business to enable those CFOs to be more strategic, Mohammed. But how can finance leaders use these technologies they already have to help maximize the organization's investments? And I guess it's to your point that you were saying earlier, it gives them a different lens into the organization than they had before.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, I think one of the crucial factors is around integration. It's a topic that comes up often when we engage many CFOs. Businesses primarily and traditionally have worked in silos. You had a different solution for HR, a different solution for your assets, a different solution for your CRM. Those days are gone now. You need to have a complete 360-degree view, of your business, and most importantly, about your customer as well. So, looking at solutions that is going to have seamless integration into these best-of-class solutions like CRM, HR, finance, etc., you need to be able to sort of make sure that you're able to invest in those type of solutions. And if cloud solutions, they give you that flexibility. They give you the scalability. They give you the integration points. They really give you a clear picture of how you can go about not only scaling your business, but most importantly, getting more insights as to what's happening into your business, the financial health, the performance, so that as a CFO, you can make very proactive decisions around these critical aspects of business. And notwithstanding the fact, Aki, which is something that's critically important, is around security and compliance. Um, we've heard of many cases of hacking, ransomware, etc. We've had customers that come to us that have primarily been hacked because they've had the private servers, and inadvertently been hacked. And, they realize, okay, our backup is actually 2 or 3 days old, and we're unable to sort of, if we restore, we're going to lose at least 2 or 3 days worth of data. Now, that's become a thing of the past if you move to the right platforms like cloud-based solution, because in today's times, we call it software as a service. It's a real all-encompassing, comprehensive solution that really allows you to take care. Well, we take care, as in the vendor takes care of the security, and is obviously compliant to the different sort of standards that are put there. Compliance requirements is something very critical. You want to be on top of your game, especially when it comes to the requirements around whether it's tax tables or changes to the VAT law, etc. Those are critical aspects of making sure you're sort of doing the right things in business. So without a doubt, I think that's something that needs to be considered. And then most importantly, there's the famous buzzword that everyone talks about today, Aki, and that's AI, artificial intelligence. But the reality is that there's artificial intelligence in various aspects. There's artificial intelligence in manufacturing, in agriculture, etc. But as a CFO, if you are having to manage the finances, how does that help you within your environment? How does that help your team within your environment? And those are things where, by moving on to sort of best-in-class applications, you can benefit from those trends, something that is now become mainstream and no longer just a nice to have. You can now benefit from utilizing AI technologies at a fraction of the price as to what it would have costed you. AI has been around for a while. Sage has been investing in AI for at least 8 years, but it's now become mainstream. Ordinary people are now using AI. We got AI in WhatsApp and, those kind of applications. And so it becomes almost necessity nowadays in business as well.
Yeah, I want to dive a little bit deeper into AI because it's such a fascinating topic. And of course, as you mentioned, Mohammed, there are so many buzzwords around. One of the other buzzwords that always is mentioned together with AI, well, almost always, is automation, and that's used many, many times. So what does automation actually mean? Can you define it from Mohammed's perspective?
Yeah, absolutely, Aki. I think that's actually quite an important aspect to understand. When we talk of automation, really, and specifically around finance, because we sort of, we're talking here to the CFO type individuals, it's really about handling repetitive tasks that was traditionally done manually. Now, that's very simplistically put, right? So instead of spending hours on data entry, invoice processing, reconciliations, trying to understand the month-end processes and all the steps and procedures that get involved in the month-end process. By automating those processes, you help to now reduce the errors, most importantly, start to save time, and also improve accuracy around what you need to do around those processes. So, for example, a very common one is automated bank feeds. We started off with way back in the day where you had to manually capture your banking transactions in the cash book. Right. From there onwards, we then started importing files, which was the next step to automating. Now we're at the point where we've got automated bank feeds, where we have a direct bank feed coming into your cash book, and the data is there automatically. And then you end up mapping those transactions. And once you've mapped that, thereafter, in the months to come, as soon as it identifies specific references, it automatically reconciles those transactions for you. So saving you a whole lot of time. There's many other examples, but that's just one very simplistic example that most people see immediate benefits from, because something, the cash book is something that people use in their everyday lives in a finance system.
It's such an important part you mentioned about that cash book, right? And how that's also, just been automated and taking a lot of strain off that CFO. So it's a great example you used.
Yeah, another very good example is AP automation, supply invoices. So typically, businesses receive a multitude of supply invoices on a daily basis. And they're having to capture anywhere between 5, 10, 15, 20, some businesses up to 50 lines per supply invoice. Now you can imagine you've got someone who's been termed a clerk, but they sort of a BCom graduate, having to do this mundane task of having to capture transactions on a daily basis. Surely their time can be used more efficiently on something else, more strategically within the business, doing some more high value tasks like internal modeling of some sort. And so by introducing things like AP automation, which uses AI capabilities, you suddenly now automating that process, reducing a whole lot of manual work. And we've seen customers actually get up to a 50% saving on time. So typically reducing they supply invoice capturing from like 10 to 15 days, saving at least 5 days on manual capturing. So if you now start to look at how you bring about those efficiencies, and those are, and these things, Aki, are not sort of pie in the sky. This is the reality. It's happening. We've got customers, not just in sort of the USA or wherever, but we've got customers directly in our country utilizing this, right? Where it's become a reality. Customers now expect solutions to be able to help them, solutions be able to help them become more efficient in business. And so these are some of the things that they can realize immediately and start to get, they staff to actually start focusing on more high value tasks.
Yeah. And of course, I'm not even mentioning errors, for example, that, you do when you capture stuff manually. I mean, that goes there. That's a given. How can CFOs leverage automation to make sure that they're spending enough time and spending time with the things that will actually add most value to their businesses? How do you balance the two?
Yeah. So, okay, I mean, if you look at it, doing finance, you got to love your job, right? Because there's a lot of pressures that come with finance over the month-end period, over audit periods, time of budgets when you're having to sort of plan budgets and so forth. And so not many things excite finance teams if you think about it, right? And so by introducing, exciting features into software, which inadvertently allows them to enhance their capabilities around being more efficient in the areas of work, this really is something that actually helps to bring the benefits to what finance teams see. And a typical thing is a month-end process, right? A month-end process, every single business needs to go through that, right? Whether you're using a manual system or whether you're using a computerized system, there are processes that you need to do, checks and balances before you move on to the next month. And that's one of the things that typically businesses have to endure and go through, that painstaking process of having to close the books and then start off the new month and make sure that different aspects of finance has been able to sort of start off in the new month. And AI now is able to help you close your month end much more quicker. I mean, ideally, we would like to get to a point where we can totally eliminate that, but it's a process you've got to work through, understanding exactly what goes through. But we already got the building blocks for something called Sage Copilot, which has been launched globally, and as we speak, it's been launched in aspects of our product in our region as well, in South Africa. And really what this is, it's a Sage Gen Copilot. So in other words, generative AI sort of Copilot, similar to what you would call Microsoft Copilot and all the likes of others. But here we've built our own LLMs, which basically analyzes your data and then starts to understand exactly what happens in the typical process around your month-end process. And this in terms now allows you to look for variances, looks at outstanding debtors as an example, proactively, right? And gives you predictive analytics around if you now start to close these variances beforehand, you can really fast track your month-end process. And so, that's one way of really being able to see and realizing the benefits almost immediately. And then secondly, if you look at things like, when it comes to budgeting and planning, typically you go through a process, you implement budgets, you have to do revisions around those budgets and so forth. And here, once again, AI can help you with that because it can help you immediately realize variances and highlight those variances to you beforehand. So that you can then start to understand and say, okay, we've done a revision to the budget. We can see immediately what the variances are, and you can then react to those kind of things in the business itself. Most importantly, I think around anomaly detection and fraud detection is something that is, something that you want to be able to give customers the reassurance that your data is sound and intact. The integrity around data is sound and intact. And so we've got things like the intelligent GL, also known as the outlier detector. And so typically what this does is that it analyzes your data on a continuous basis. And as soon as it picks up any anomalies, it highlights it to the CFO or the financial manager. And on that basis, you are then able to review the transaction. Either you accept it or you reject it. But what this does is that it starts to give the CFO confidence that, okay, my data has been analyzed. I don't need to worry about an audit process that comes in 6 months or the end of the year, where suddenly the auditor picks up, oh, you know what, but there's something that doesn't seem right here. There's a transaction that should have been, 700,000, but it's 7 million. What went wrong here? So you're picking up the issue after that. Here, you proactively, the system is doing all the hard work for you. It's crunching through the millions of lines of data or thousands of lines of transactional data that you've got, and it's in highlighting this for you. And so it's actually quite clever, because if suddenly you've got an outlier whereby you started, let's say, for example, you've been dealing with typical transactions between, let's say, 500,000 to about 2 million, which is your typical transactions. And suddenly you start dealing with, a supplier or a customer where you invoice them, maybe let's say 12 million, which is an anomaly. When the system looks at the system and realizes, okay, this is an anomaly. This is a transaction that's too large. I don't know if this is a mistake, but let's highlight it to you. And then once you're then able to analyze that transaction, you're able to then determine and say, okay, well, this is actually correct, or actually, no, it's incorrect. But let's just, for example, it's correct. The system then knows, okay, you're now starting to delve into larger value transactions. And so the next time around, it will pick up again another transaction, allow you to correct it, but then it will start to see a new trend that, okay, you're dealing now with larger value transactions. And so that's a normal thing as opposed to an anomaly.
So it's actually learning as you engaging with the software. It's learning about how you operate. It's learning about the types of transactions you have, and of course, this is where AI comes in. You mentioned it earlier, Mohammed. I mean, AI is another prominent technology in 2025. Why should finance functions be excited by AI as opposed to worried about it?
Yeah, and I think, okay, you raise a very important point here, because when we talk of AI, the immediate thing that comes to people's minds is like, oh no, does this mean it's going to take over my job? Am I going to lose my job? And it's something that is an immediate that's called it almost a threat that staff would probably see. But having said that, it's not the case, right? We really believe that as a finance team, the CFO, you need to embrace AI, embrace technology. And when you do this, you'll actually see as I talked about it, you'll see an excitement in the teams. You'll see people actually starting to love their job. But most importantly, AI now allows them to eliminate this data manual entry, reducing errors, and obviously helping them increase their workflows. So really, example of the accounts payable. We talked about the AP automation. We talked about the bank reconciliation. This is now where you can start to see where the system will now be able to learn and read and categorize invoices and match them against purchase orders, which eventually will also allow you to initiate payments against that without human intervention. So what this really means is that the finance team can start to focus on strategy, data modeling, and looking for new opportunities as to how they can extend the business rather than chasing invoices and having to do manual data entries. The other thing that AI really helps provide is like real-time insights to enhance decision making. So that's another critical component. So in order for the CFO to be able to spot cash flow trends, cost inefficiencies, and potential risks. Typically that means they've got to analyze data, go through spreadsheets and different types of reports and dashboards they've got to basically do. Now, all of those things are still in place, but by having AI, this now will help highlight those things for you. And so then once you analyze what AI is highlighting for you, you can then go and delve into the deeper side of things and actually then understand what's happening and unpack that even further. But really, it allows you to become more proactive rather than reactive. And it allows, and then forecasting becomes much more easy as well, because that's something that typically happens when you want to understand you've got certain metrics in place and you said, okay, we've got these metrics in place. We know what our budgets are. We know what our actuals are, but how can we forecast that we're going to make our targets accordingly? So one is, you forecast manually. The other is that it looks at your historical data, understands the trends of what typically happens, and it gives you some sort of predictive analytics around what's going to happen, which you can then sort of utilize to decision making and how you go about strategically implementing those decisions.
Brilliant stuff. Mohammed, where do you see AI adding the most value to the finance function? Because there's so many aspects of AI that add value in different spheres, but where do you see it really being focused on?
So, some of the things and the obvious things are things like searching. So one of the things, if you think of a Google search, typically, you typically want to have a similar type of search. But now this is not just about searching for a transaction, or you basically want to be able to, have type in something in natural language, as we call it, and ask a question like, what is my P&L as per the third week of the month? And the system will then be able to generate for you a profit and loss report, as an example, which is now, for example, a month-to-date report, without you having to go and select the report, allocate the filters, and then generate the report. It will then come up and give you something similar to that, and then you're able to then sort of analyze that information. So really, allowing you to put natural language questions forward, and the system is then able to deliver to you relevant and actionable results, which typically would allow you to find information more quickly and allow you to make more decisions more quickly. Early on, we talked about the month-end process. Now, Aki, coming back to this particular question, that is really something that I believe a lot of businesses will immediately see the benefits of. When you have an assisted month-end close process, whereby you get a complete glance and an overview of what's happening during the month before you have to do the month-end close, and then kind of having predictions as to what needs to happen still. And in order for you to sort of ensure you're closing on time, or rather even before time, these are the actionable items to almost immediately. And then you can, immediately implement those, or rather get people to start actioning that and sort of start to, take the right and execute accordingly. The other thing is really, variance analysis. There is something that comes up very often whereby you need to sort of say, okay, how are we tracking against budget? How do we action if we are not making budget, and so forth? Now, typically, you normally need to go and produce those reports to then have a view as to what's happening. But by detecting early variances, this enables you to make faster decisions and resolving issues before they escalate. So really, those are like the immediate benefits that finance teams can see by implementing these type of technology platforms in their business.
Brilliant. Now, the responsibilities of the CFO are growing outside of what is considered traditional finance. So you're seeing that, for example, somebody used an analogy the other day that the CFO is, if it's an orchestra, is learning to play the violin and the trombone, and they become multifaceted, which is a good thing. Could you provide examples of where this is happening the most in organizations? What are you seeing?
Yeah, absolutely. The CFO role is evolved far beyond traditional number crunching. In today, CFOs are expected to become more strategic business leaders. Okay, and when you talk of strategic business leaders, what roles do they play around things like digital transformation, risk management, compliance? Over and above that, even a new thing that has now come about, as we know, ESG, which is environmental, social, and governance. Right now, those are things that requires the CFO's input, and most importantly, that they provide the leadership around that. But one of the biggest shifts, I think, is around technology leadership. Now, typically, CFOs have always just been involved in the spreadsheets and the number crunching, as we said early on. But then now I think there's an important aspect for them to start understanding technology more. It's not something that they need to be afraid about, which is, it's simply just the technology is there. It's simple enough for people to start utilizing and using. It's about understanding how the technology can interact with your business, how it can be implemented into your business. And so then the CFO is able to sort of help make these decisions around how they transform their business from traditional accounting systems, which has been primarily desktop solutions, and moving away from these desktop solutions to cloud-based solutions. Really, it is a mind shift initially, because you sort of, it's chalk and cheese in terms of the interface, in terms of the process flow. Ultimate result is still the same, but it's a mind shift. You've got to basically embrace it. You've got to look into it and become the custodian for digital transformation within the business. Because typically, if you look at the finance teams taking that step forward and the CFO now making the recommendations that, no, I think we need to do this, the rest of the business, even the operations, start to embrace that, because they know that our operational solutions can now also start to talk to our finance solutions. And we see the CTO playing quite an important role as well. But typically, the CTO always comes in, okay, I'm pulling in my CFO because he needs to be comfortable with what's happening, right? And so therefore, you find that if the CFO starts to embrace this new technology platform, they start to understand what is cybersecurity, what is risk management, what role can I play in making recommendations advisory. They don't need to know the nitty-gritty of cybersecurity, but they need to understand how that impacts the business. They need to understand what is ransomware. If I get hacked, what happens, right? And so how do we mitigate all of those risks? And so when they start to engage with vendors, they then able to sort of ask the right questions and get the comfort that, okay, this vendor is able to give me a solution that is going to take my business to the next level.
Very interesting. So a completely different perspective to how CFOs looked at the business in the past versus where they're going today. And they've got these tools that equips them to make these kind of decisions. How can CFOs that are watching this, or a CFO that you must send this video to, how can CFOs and finance leaders adapt to these new responsibilities we've been talking about, Mohammed?
Yeah, so I think the first thing, is that they've got, they're going to see themselves as strategic enablers. And by that, what I mean is they've got to embrace the mind shift of actually saying, okay, I'm willing to look and exploit new technologies, and not just be the financial gatekeepers. They've got to understand that the role has evolved, which means they've got to expand their skill sets by leveraging technology and collaborating across the business. Because by expanding your skill set and in combination with a technology platform and understanding those technologies, you are then able to drive that transformation within the business. And so, by getting a deeper understanding of the platforms, the data analytics, automation, we talked about automation. What does automation mean in the business? And you start to see if by implementing and automating certain processes, you can realize the benefits and the decision-making time, as well as the cost saving, the accuracies. CFOs then sort of understand that, look, I'll be better equipped to start making these decisions. And I think most importantly, from a CFO perspective, they're going to look at breaking down the silos. We talked about silos early on, where you've got different solutions, HR, finance, CRM, all in different platforms, and then you've got to try and get a BI tool of some sort or a data warehouse tool to sort of give you a combined report. But by seamlessly integrating these different platforms in best of class platforms, like if I could refer to, you're immediately able to get a 300 these different platforms of your customer, and you're able to uncover challenges that might come about in the business, to the cash flow issues. And also the other side of the coin is you could suddenly find new revenue opportunities which you didn't realize. So the CFO responsibilities become, tenfold when they start to embrace and move into technology platforms that, really would benefit them. And it's not just about, oh no, I can take my desktop solution and, host it in the cloud. It's not the same thing. Hosting it in the cloud just means you're going to be able to get access from anywhere, from anywhere for that matter, right? But it's not really giving you the benefit on scalability, flexibility, integration, and most importantly, around using new technology trends like artificial intelligence. By moving to a cloud-based solution, you are able to realize these benefits because you get the economies of scale simply because vendors like Sage invest millions of dollars or pounds into these technology platforms to give the customer the benefit. And so the customer really gets to see, and because of economies of scale, they're not paying an arm and a leg. It's a fraction of the price as to what you would pay for. And so this is basically how, I see the CFO teams really becoming more agile and most importantly, being able to drive this business transformation and adaptability to being agile and competitive in today's environments.
Mohammed, it's been such a pleasure talking to you and hearing the insights of the CFO. A lot of organizations take it for granted, the CFO and the work that the CFO does, rather. But of course, the world of opportunities unlocked by AI and automation and technology on a platform like Sage really adds tremendous value and unlocks massive opportunities for CFOs in organizations using products like Sage. Mohammed Mosam, who's the Regional Product Marketing Director for Sage Africa and Middle East, Sage Intacct. Mohammed, thank you so much for sharing those insights with us. We really appreciate your time.
It's been a pleasure, Aki. Thanks for giving me the opportunity, and hopefully we shared some great insights for the people to understand.